Here.
We're live, Councilor Grow.
Very good. Welcome to the June 8th Planning and Development Subcommittee meeting. We have our regular cast of characters, co-chair Val Gilman, a member Tracy O'Neill. We've got Sherry Carvelis, who's going to keep us all in line. Jamie O'Hara is on the call, as is CAO Jill Cahill. That's it. We've got also Elizabeth Cardarelli, Betsy Cardarelli, who'll be here for the National Grid. That is it in terms of that. We'll go ahead and start with the consistent with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you are watching on a computer or a device, there's a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options to be recognized to speak. Without objection, I would like to shift our agenda around and deal with the National Grid petition because it seems relatively straightforward, and we might have some time to talk more about the temporary zoning relief that might go on a little bit longer. So if that's not objectionable to anybody, we'll just go right to that, and we'll open up the public hearing on, let me get it here. The public hearing, public hearing 2022-002 National Grid to install, beginning at a point approximately 300 feet west of the center line of the intersection of Biskie. Is that the one we're doing tonight?
No.
Yeah.
Atlantic Road.
Nope. Yeah.
Number 3, Councilor Grow.
Yeah. There we go. Nope, I've got the totally wrong thing here. I'm sorry to say, I opened up the wrong one again. It's hot in my office. There we go. Got it here. There we go. Notions template. Nope. Give me a moment. There we go. All right. Now we have it. Public hearing 2022-003 Atlantic Road to install, beginning at a point approximately 10 feet west of the center line of the intersection of Windermere Road and continuing approximately 15 feet in a northwest direction, installation of 15 feet of 2 to 3 inch concrete encased PVC conduit and all appurtenances from MH392-1 to customer owned heavy duty handhole on Windermere Road, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures in Gloucester, Massachusetts. With that, we're gonna open the public hearing. I'm gonna request that next time we have all these things written in actual English. So with that, I'm going to ask if all the abutters have been notified. Sherry?
Yes, they're all notified on May 25th.
Very good. And with that, I will leave it to Betsy Cardarelli to let us know what the petition is all about, and we'll go from there.
Hello there. Thank you so much for having me. I apologize. I'm having some computer issues. I think I've had some updates and we can't get on Zoom correctly, so I do apologize. My name is Elizabeth Cardarelli. I am a distribution designer at National Grid. We are at 44 River Street in Beverly. My request for petition this evening is for electrical service to a new home that's being built on Windermere. We would like to provide them with an underground service to the private road, and then the customer will take their electrical service up the private road. And this is an existing manhole. I just want to make note on underground construction, the contractor hired by the customer will be doing the road opening permit and will be doing the work on the street.
So you won't be doing the work on the street. National Grid won't be. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Is that it?
That's
Yep.
it. Yeah,
Short and sweet. Okay.
Underground electrical
right.
service to a customer-owned handhole. Yes.
Got it. All right. So do we have anybody who would like to speak in favor of this application? If you'd like to raise your hand if you'd like to speak. We only have one attendee, so Unless Ms. Steele would like to speak on this, I will move to those speaking in opposition. Does anybody object to this? Seeing also nothing. Do we have any written communication?
Yes, we have one from Mike Hale, the DPW director.
Okay.
I'll share it, one moment. So we have a memo of recommendation to the P&D committee from Mike Hale, the DPW director, regarding application poll petition 2022-003 for Atlantic Road. And it reads, counselors, the Department of Public Works has reviewed the above mentioned application by National Grid to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way named below. Atlantic Road, National Grid to install beginning at a point approximately 10 feet west of the center line of the intersection of Windermere Road and continuing approximately 15 feet in a northwest direction. Installation of 15 feet of 2 3-inch concrete encased PVC conduit in all appurtenances from MH 392-1 to customer-owned heavy-duty handhole on Windermere Road. In an attempt to maintain the quality of city roadways, the Department of Public Works requests the following be required of the applicant. Number 1, notification to the Department of Public Works 72 hours in advance of the proposed work. A construction schedule will be prepared by the applicant for review and acceptance by the Department of Public Works. Number 2, proposed excavation may only occur during accepted road opening and construction season, 15th of March through 15th of November. In the absence of a detailed construction plan, the Department of Public Works requests all proposed conduits and appurtenances shall be placed so as to cause minimum conflict with existing underground utility services. Number 4, all excavations must be secured at all times. 5, all excavated trenches shall be patched flush with the surrounding asphalt using hot mix asphalt binder at the end of each workday to minimize pedestrian hazards. Asphalt shall be applied in 2 lifts of 2 inches, totaling 4 inches. Number 6, for the length of conduit in the sidewalk, restoration must be 2 feet before the conduit begins and 2 feet after the conduit ends and front to back of the sidewalk. Number 7, all final paving shall be done in consultation with the Department of Public Works in an agreed upon final paving plan executed by the applicant. Should you have any questions regarding the conditions requested, please do not hesitate to contact my office.
All right, very good. Thank you, Sherry. Anything else in terms of communications? That's all good?
That is it.
All right, in that case, let's move on to questions from counselors. Counselors, do we have any questions would you like to ask? Councilor Gelman.
I have a question to Betsy. So when the road is torn up and then completed, can you just review, Betsy, what the process is in terms of us adhering to the excavation ordinance that we have in the city in terms of making sure that it is in good or better condition to before this happened?
Absolutely, I can. When the customer's contractor goes to the DPW to get the road opening permit, typically they're instructed on what needs to be done exactly as the instructions were given to us. So when the contractors do open up that portion of the road, they are instructed to repair it as if we were the ones repairing it. So once it's opened up and they complete their work and they have their inspections, and our inspector does go out and take a look at that conduit and make sure that it's built to our specs, because we do eventually take it over. They do the installation originally. Once it's inspected, it's cleared, and the customer is ready for power, we pull in our wire and then we take ownership of that conduit. So from that point to the end of time, we're responsible for maintenance on it. But the initial installation is guided by the road opening permit to the contractor.
And may I ask a follow-up question, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, sure. Walk on.
So who is the person that actually does the inspection?
He's one of our trench inspectors. We have somebody who inspects those electrical trenches for any conduit that National Grid is going to take over. It's not specific to gas and electric. He's specific to electric, and it's typically it's only conduit that we are going to take ownership of. So when you see a petition from us, typically, unless it says customer owned, we are going to take ownership afterwards. So he goes out to the site and instructs the contractors on what to do, how to do it, and along with the DPW's instructions.
Okay, so does someone from our DPW come by to check out the completedness of the work?
That would be my understanding, but I'm actually not 100% sure on that.
Okay,
I am not clear on that. I know the instructions are provided, including our trench specs, which we have books on to instruct them on how to build their trench.
yeah,
But the requirements for paving are instructed by DPW, and they're very specific. So my assumption would be that somebody from the DPW is going by and making sure once everything is cleaned up and closed up, that it's taken care of to their specs.
Great. Thank you. I'm comfortable. Those are my only questions.
All right. Councilor
Thank you.
O'Neill, do you have any questions?
Yeah, it might be a little silly, but I have two questions. What is a hand hole? And what is MH 392-1? That must be a location, right?
It is. It's actually the abbreviation for a manhole, MH.
Okay,
The manhole 392, and
Okay.
the HH stands for handhole. A handhole is a mini manhole. It's only about 17 by 21, and it's specific to smaller cables.
I don't
okay.
think we're allowed to call them mini-mans anymore.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Tracy?
No, thanks.
Okay, the only questions I have is that Atlantic Road is a very busy road during the summer. Big time for people to drive around the back shore. Do we have an estimate of when this is going to be done and how long it will take?
I do not. I can get that information and forward it to Sherry. The contractor is responsible for the timing on the
Right.
project. So I'm not really sure where they stand with that. I know that there's a lot of environmental permitting that would have to be done as well in that location. So we're waiting for the review to be done on that, just to make sure that any construction being done within that buffer zone is approved. So I'll get a status on that, and I'll definitely let you know. I can speak with
Okay.
the contractor as well and get an estimate.
All right, that'd be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on this application? No, we're all good to go. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm going to entertain a motion to waive the reading of conditions since they've already read by Jerry.
So moved?
Second,
Second, and because we have to do roll call votes, all in favor? Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
yes.
Councilor Jason, yes. So that's good. We will read the motion.
Want me to do it?
No, I can do it.
Okay.
I like to read the motions. And
Okay.
you can second it. if you want to, unless you really want to.
No, it's okay. You can take the lead.
Okay, we're going to make a motion to move to permit National Grid to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the public way, and to install, beginning at the point approximately 10 feet west of the center line of the intersection of Windermere Road and continuing approximately 15 feet in the northwest direction, installation of 15 feet of 2 to 3 inch concrete encased PVC conduit and all appurtenances from manhole 392-1 to customer-owned heavy-duty handhole on Windermere Road, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures in Gloucester, Massachusetts, as shown on a plan included in the application dated April 29, 2022, with the following conditions. Those are not the conditions those are the conditions that we've already read. So subject to conditions as they were read, and I so move.
Second.
Right, any discussion on the motion? No, nothing, you sure? Tracy?
Sure.
What? No, okay, well, in that case, let's vote on it. Roll call vote, Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilor Grow says yes. 3-0, approved. Thank you very much, Ms. Cardarelli. Until next time, Biskie head, I guess.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you,
And I'm sorry
Betsy.
again. Thank you. Sorry for my
No
computer
problem.
problems. I apologize.
That's
You heard you loud
okay.
and clear.
Thank
Very
you.
good, thank you very much, okay.
Have a good night.
All right, with that, we are going to move on to City Council Order 2022-16 from Councilor Gilman. Amend the Gloucester zoning ordinances by inserting a new section 5.32, temporary zoning relief to business recovering from COVID-19 pandemic. So this is not a public hearing. No, it is a public hearing, isn't it?
No,
Yeah, correct?
not until the
So it's not a
14th.
public hearing. Okay, fine. So really, we're here right now to discuss whether or not we're going to bother moving forward with this. And since this is your order, Councilor Gilman, why don't you go ahead and take the lead on this, and then we can talk about what the steps are. I don't see anybody. I mean, I see Ms. Steele is on the line. I don't know if she's here to address this particular issue, or if she's just here as an interest, but let's talk about what's being proposed, what the planning board had to say about it, and what the next steps are.
Thank you, Counselor. So I did attend the planning board meeting last Thursday. And being the one that initiated this order, I was allowed to present it. And after they discussed it, they came back with some recommendations for conditions. They are as follows: that only applicants open for both lunch and dinner may apply, that the closing date of the program is changed from December 1st to October 10th, that restaurants are required to compensate the city for parking spaces taken by outdoor seating, and that the parking spaces taken by outdoor seating are limited per restaurant in some capacity, such that the total spaces used for outdoor seating is less of an impact on the total number of spaces available to retailers. So that was what was discussed. Bill Sanborn, our building inspector, was at the meeting to answer questions. And they probably discussed this for close to an hour. On our initial meeting that we had on May 18th, we had some preliminary introductions from our CAO, Jill Cahill, who's still on the call, which is appreciated, and in addition to Bill Sanborn. And it was agreed that the process, if this were to be approved, would be similar to what's been done in the past. The permitting would be done online through Viewpoint. An outside seating plan would be required that shows the paths around the seating, exits, outs, and outside emergency lighting, with the focus being on public safety. And the number of seats cannot exceed the number of seats approved in the occupancy permit. Tables can be moved from inside to outside, but more tables cannot be added. Outside seating areas must be ADA handicap accessible, which will require a ramp from the curb to the seating area. And that was basically a summary of what was discussed. So there were no members of restaurant owners that attended the public hearing last week in front of the planning board. There was, I think, one person that spoke of concerns, and that was Adam Faber, who is the owner of Mark Adrian. And he presented a kind of a, I don't want to say a petition, but a letter stating some of the concerns that were outlined in these conditions as a retail owner. Concern that the fact that these Jersey barriers that are out there are permanent during the duration of the outdoor dining and does take up parking spots that are in the vicinity of the retail shops. And that's why they came up with some of the conditions. So that's kind of my summary. You know, I know our CAO was helpful in the initial conversation. I don't know if we want to ask her to answer any questions for us, but you know, I think we need to have a rigorous conversation about this at this point and make a recommendation to the full council, seeing that we have a public hearing scheduled for the 14th.
Good. Okay. Jill, are you available to speak?
I am.
Oh, look at that. Great. What's the administration's take on this?
So the administration, so the mayor from the get-go, his opinion of this was it had to be something that the majority, that we really heard from people and the majority of the people wanted and were advocating for. At the administration level, we only heard from one restaurant, and that was Tono, and that was earlier on. So, you know, he's not opposed or against it, but he wants to make sure it's the best thing for economic development and for Main Street as a whole. So at that point, when Val decided to file the order, you know, we're here to operationalize it if you guys put it forward. You know, as you guys have heard at the public hearing, the planning board went through their process. We understand their recommendations. I guess the only one I can really comment on is, you know, parking revenue. If we could create a permit fee, but I don't have a number that's directly tied to parking revenue. But I would support a small fee, but I wouldn't want it to be excessive in any way. But in general, you know, if it's the will of the council and, you know, we're here to support it and operationalize it. I think the most important thing to remember is that we will not be able, the barriers that have been used in the past are used for Fiesta. We didn't have Fiesta when we had outdoor dining. So the program wouldn't start until July 1st at the earliest.
Right. As far as the parking revenue, that was the one that was pointed out. We're still at 50 cents an hour, right, for parking? What are we at?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think so. I think you put in, I think it's a quarter for 30 minutes.
Yeah. So basically we're looking at 50 cents, $4 a day for each parking space would be the potential loss of income for the city in terms of loss of parking. I agree with you on the not wanting to make it an onerous fee. I think Boston got its hands slapped pretty hard when they put out a pretty obnoxious fee for outdoor dining. It's unfortunate that we don't seem to have anybody here other than the administration who wants to speak about it, yes or no, in terms of potential problems. Tracy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Hold on a second. I think it's a good idea to let the restaurants have outdoor dining. I think that retail, I think they can accommodate, I read the letter from, I want to call him Mark Adrian. What's his first name?
Farber.
Adam Farber.
Okay, Adam. I did read that, obviously, and I read the retailers who were included in that. And I think that retailers could, instead of the restaurants opening at lunchtime and not having any business, right? Maybe the retailers could stay a little later when the restaurants have business. So in other words, instead of retailers opening up from 10 to 5 or 9 to 5 and asking the restaurants to accommodate them, maybe the retailers could open a little bit later and stay open a little later. I remember years and years ago when I used to go down to Rocky Neck and have a couple of drinks at I forget the name of the place, but whatever. The art store was open at night. I mean, and there were people in there buying art pieces. So I thought that was a really great idea. And I have noticed, I haven't stopped, that during Fiesta, Turtle Alley's open late. So you leave Fiesta, you go get a turtle and, you know, walk home. But, and that's I'm sure they made a lot of money or they wouldn't have stayed open, right? So I think that's an idea that could be discussed. And I think that people come to eat at our restaurants as well. So the more people that come to eat at our restaurants, the more people will stop in at a retail shop if it's open.
Right.
If they close at 5, they're losing out on the people who come. People don't go to the restaurants at noontime. They just don't. It's hot. They're at the beach, you know, they're wherever. And they come in the evening. So it's just a thought. But
Val,
I'd
do
like-
you have a sense of how many restaurants are we talking about?
There were about 6 or 7 that seemed interested in this, and that does not include Tono.
Right,
Anthony
they've got their
felt
own outdoor spaces.
initially he was excited in March, and then he didn't hear anything about it. He's got his outdoor area right now, and he thought that it was, he said, you know, maybe he would join if others did, but it didn't sound like he was planning on that. So at the first meeting, we had, let's see, we had Short and Main represented. We had Cafe Cecilia. We had Jalapenos. We had Passports. We had Sugar Mags. And we had the Franklin. So we had a good amount of the restaurant owners kind of interested early on. And I don't know if one of the reasons why they have not attended since then is maybe they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to increase their occupancy. And if it rains and the stuff is outside, it's going to stay outside. I mean, obviously they're going to have tents, but you know, maybe it's not as appealing to people. Number one, you know, there were conversations, they were aware that some of the retailers were concerned about the shared space and how we could consolidate some of that space in a way that did not create obstacles for customers that might want to run into Mark Adrian's and buy some shoes or whatever, you know, so it wasn't as convenient because the barriers are there all the time. You know, so if I were to look at the conditions that the planning board came up with, may I speak to those for a second?
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, we should actually go over them because I think we should discuss each of these. I have some questions about sort of the efficacy of some of them and all
Yeah.
that. We should talk about them.
Yeah, so the first one, and this kind of, you know, to what Councilor O'Neill was saying, which I agree that it would be nice if this conversation could occur. It seems like for this summer, it's probably too late to start thinking about how the restaurant owners are going to start having like lunch too, in addition to dinner. For example, Franklin tends to just do dinner. So according to the conditions from the planning board, they're asking that they also do lunch, you know, so I mean, finding help in the restaurant business right now, dishwashers ain't going to happen at this late date.
No.
Similarly, for the retail shops, if they were to want to stay open a little bit later because they were excited about this and they thought they might have more customers that come in after they have a dinner at night, it's kind of late for them as well to be trying to staff up. So therefore, I like the fact that we did come up with an end date instead of making this program end the end of December. You know, I would actually suggest that we end it Columbus Day weekend, like on the Sunday or the Monday of Columbus Day weekend, whatever that date is, because I think for the future, I really believe that the retailers and the restaurant owners should really have a good collaborative conversation and do some serious planning and strategizing in a more formal way. So it's a win-win to everybody. Right now, I think some people will be happy and some people won't. So that is a little bit of a concern for me. You know, the idea of the outdoor seating, like trying to consolidate it. One of the things that Bill Sanborn said to me was that when you have liquor licenses, for example, for Passports and for Franklin, if they were sharing space in front, that would be a problem because they have to differentiate their locations from a liquor license and control that. So that would be kind of hard to control and share space for those two.
I honestly don't know how they would share space. That would
Yeah.
be a
Right.
really problem.
Right. So I think we've got a couple of complications. But having said that, with you know, with the exception of the applicants open for both lunch and dinner, I'm not that upset about any of the conditions that the planning board came up with. Although I would not want to be overly lofty in the cost for, you know, a spot. I mean, I would, in Rockport, I think it's $250, maybe, that must be a month, for to just take a spot outside. I know that the folks in the chamber had said that, you know, that it seems to be a good amount of money. I don't know. I mean, we'd have to set something, you know, to just hold that spot, because it's revenue. Now that the kiosks are all working, it is revenue.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, I think 250 is a lot of money for a month.
Quick math, if I can interrupt you. At 4.3 weeks per month, at 6 days a week, at 8 hours a day, it's $103 that the city's losing in terms of its actual revenue. I know that there are people who say you gotta save every single dime, but sometimes, you know, something like that is so innocuous in terms of the benefit that it could possibly, you know, the trade-off is more beneficial than $100. So that I think $250 is too much as well. You know, I think, you know, if you're looking at $100 to $150 a month to cover that and any permitting costs and the paperwork and all that stuff, that's one thing. But
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I don't think it needs to be onerous. So I concur with that. I agree with you in terms of, you know, we're only talking about 6 or 7 restaurants in the entire street, and by dictating that they have to be lunch and dinner, you're already now then calling out a couple more restaurants that can't participate, and it's becoming sort of a why bother. So I'd be in favor of losing the lunch restriction and allowing any restaurant that wants to do it to do it. I think we're going to get to the point where, at this point, we're going to make the possibility available. My guess is we're probably not going to get a whole lot of restaurants joining up. And, you know, in one respect, if we pass this, you know, with whatever conditions we end up doing it, we could have 0 restaurants doing it because of the shortness of the season. But I think that's not really our issue in terms of that. I also don't think that, frankly, the loss of 6 to 10 parking spaces over the summer, I'm always been one of those people who thinks that the parking crisis downtown is well overblown, because most people just don't want to walk more than a block to any particular location. There's lots of parking on Rogers Street. There's lots of parking in IC42. There's ways to get around that issue that, you know, you don't have to park right in front of the store that you're going to. And yes, I know senior citizens access, all that, but in the real world of city life, sometimes you got to walk, you know? And so I'm less concerned about that in terms of effect on the retailers. I just feel like we ought to be giving the restaurants an opportunity. And I think helping to bring a little bit of more vitality back to downtown. I mean, it's, you know, Tracy's not wrong. The idea of everything closing around 5 to 6 o'clock and shuttering up, you know, especially during the summer, you would think that we'd want to take advantage of it and create more of an atmosphere where it felt vibrant and alive. And maybe this is something the administration can think of for next summer. Maybe we should think about doing, you know, closing Main Street off at each of the cross streets and creating open restaurants as a matter of course. And that would take some planning, but I think it's something that many cities have managed to do, and it's functioned very well. It takes a little effort, but it creates an environment where people want to come and spend the evening.
Right. Kind of like the feeling of the block parties, right? The 3 block parties. It's closed, it's safe. You wouldn't really need Jersey barriers because you're closing the road, you know, and people can just kind of get together. I mean, we talked a little bit about that in some of the meetings that I've attended. And I think that's a really, that's one of those vibrant ideas that with more collaboration, you know, and that's why I kind of like the cutoff being the expiration of this to be Columbus Day, whatever day that is. Sherry, maybe you could.
October 10th.
Oh, it is October 10th? So that's the Monday. Okay, so that would make sense. And that way this group could start working together for a more long-term solution at that point.
And And we could look at too, we wouldn't need to necessarily do it 7 nights a week. We could maybe do it Thursday, Friday and Saturday nights or something like that where
Right.
there's the majority of traffic is going on, foot traffic. But in terms of what we've got before us tonight, is there any other thoughts in terms of the conditions? There's nothing we can do about the conditions on capacity because that's dictated by the license, if that's correct.
Right.
So,
To bring back to your comment, Jason, I like, and Tracy, I kind of like $100 for a spot per month because it seems really reasonable. And in the kiosks are actively working right now. I'd say we'd cut out open for both lunch and dinner.
Yep.
To create some flexibility. We're comfortable with October 10th being the expiration because that's Columbus Day, and after that it gets pretty cold. And then the consolidation of the space just doesn't logistically make sense to be able to do that from this point on. So I would be comfortable with just making those, just changing our motion to include what I just said. And then let's see what happens at the public hearing on the 14th. If we do this public hearing on the 14th and no restaurant owners show up, then council might decide not to vote for it. But
Right.
if we do it on the 14th and 5 out of these 8 restaurants or something show up and we're excited about it, I'd say there might be a reasonable chance that we would vote for it. So that's
Yeah.
my feeling.
I'm inclined to think that regardless of, unless there's a really compelling reason at the public hearing not to pass it, again, we're only making accommodations for people or businesses that actually want to do it. So if we pass it and none do it, there's no impact on the city. If one restaurant does it, then they get to do it, and that's fine. If we don't pass it, obviously nobody can take advantage of it. But I kind of think it's one of these things where we're offering up an opportunity. It has relatively little impact on the city in terms of whether or not anybody takes advantage of it. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. I think maybe we should get an analysis from Jill about the parking revenue. But I agree with you on keeping it somewhat reasonable and an honest compensation for the loss of potential parking revenue, I think is a reasonable way to look at it. Tracy, you had something to say?
Yep, I have a couple of questions. I foresee too, people can park there, correct?
Yeah.
And do they pay?
Yeah.
They pay at the kiosk? Okay. I definitely agree with not requiring the lunch thing and ending it on Columbus Day. I think that those are good ideas. I'm wondering, we should have some signage, right, that says parking. And I had actually thought of even letting people park at City Hall parking lot, but Thursday nights they're there until 6:30, right?
Yeah.
But if that would be
I'm-
free
I'm-
though, so.
I'm kind of ambivalent about worrying too much about that. I think that's one of those things that people got to figure out themselves.
Right, and the price of parking, $100 a month, I think that's good. Would that be something ARPA could help the restaurants with? It's an expense.
It is, but I think it might be a stretch, but that's an administration question. We can ask them. Again, if Jill is able to weigh in on that, maybe at the public hearing or whether is there any place for ARPA money. I mean, I think this all came about, Val, because, you wanted to offer up an opportunity to continue because the emergency had continued. And, I think it's a great gesture to the downtown restaurants. I'm hoping that some of them will take advantage of it. Our job is just to offer the opportunity and then.
Right. And I think it's reasonable to think that if we were to affirmatively support this on the 14th, our CAO, Jill Kale, said that the barriers could be in place by July 1st after Fiesta, and Melissa texted Sarah Prince, whom oversees the licensing board, said that she would do her part in doing the permitting. And Bill Sanborn said he would do his part in getting the the viewpoint
Permitting.
permitting, in place and do his part, and to check the ADA accessibility is like a little wooden ramp. So, if you're in a wheelchair, you can get up into the restaurant, things like that. So, if you guys are comfortable, I'm comfortable making a motion, and we can see what happens at the public hearing.
Okay. Without any objection, Jamie, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, just wanted to comment. I like the vibrancy of the Planning and Development Committee tonight. Our restaurants, we're very fortunate to still have the restaurants around. They've survived a very difficult time with COVID, and with the rising numbers in COVID, there are a lot of people who, or I shouldn't say a lot of people, there are many people who aren't comfortable going inside. And to give them the option to sit outside, I think is proactive. And as everyone has said, it's the will of the restaurant whether they want to exercise their right, if the council approves it, to implement such outdoor seating. One thing I'm concerned with is the capacity. The capacity is based on the size of the restaurant, and if they're expanding outside, I know other cities and towns, as we, Boston being one notable, but other cities and towns do not have capacity limits. Additional seating is placed outside and they utilize that. So I just think, we need to be pro-business because businesses are profitable for the city. And it's such a short season. We know I go downtown, I'm sure all of you, on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and the downtown is so vibrant. As Councilor Grow has mentioned, parking is at a premium. Why? Because there are so many people out. As Councilor O'Neill had mentioned, boy, that's an opportunity to be selling your wares. And I think that the lunch restriction is a stretch. Many people obviously don't go to lunch because people are working or they're busy doing other things. So to put that restriction on a restaurant, I think is onerous. But again, I commend the Planning and Development Subcommittee tonight for speaking so well and bouncing such great ideas off of each other. And obviously, if I was a voting member of the Planning and Development, I certainly support our businesses and restaurants. I appreciate the time to speak.
Cool. Hold that thought. We'll be on the 14th.
Councilor
Cool.
Grow, I have a question on logistics right now.
Yeah.
Seeing that this document as it stands was advertised in the newspaper for public hearing,
The 14th.
can I just go and change the effective date as I read it, the expiration date, and make it October 10th and change it for December 1st without making conditions at the end? Can I just read that into the
Yeah, because the public hearing is on the amending of the zoning ordinance. What we end up coming out with in P&D is the final recommendation of the city
great.
council is whatever we come up with. So we're allowed to amend it as we want to.
Okay.
The only suggestion I would maybe do is if you're going to put in a dollar amount, maybe we put a placeholder in that into an amount deemed reasonable by the administration to cover permitting costs.
I mean, we could say $100 or whatever is suitable to administration by the public hearing date.
Yeah. And then we can figure out the final amount that way. I think that's
I
great.
think that makes sense. Great.
Yeah. Good. All right. You want to rock on that motion?
Sure, I'd love to. So I move to recommend that City Council initiates a temporary amendment to the Gloucester zoning ordinance pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, and Section 1.11.2, Section E, and to amend the zoning ordinance to provide for temporary zoning relief to businesses post-COVID-19 pandemic as follows. Insert a new 5.32 temporary zoning relief to businesses recovering from COVID-19 pandemic. Number 1, purpose and duration. The purpose of this section is to provide temporary zoning relief to businesses in the city of Gloucester recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic to provide opportunities to stimulate economic activity during this time. The city takes this action to continue to allow businesses some flexible options and use of outdoor spaces to the extent reasonably safe and feasible to operate as approved by the city. This section 5.32 is temporary and shall expire on October 10th, 2022. This section shall apply only to temporary structures and to temporary uses and only to the structures and uses described below. Such structures and uses shall not remain on the site or in use after the expiration of this section unless otherwise permitted by law. Number 2, temporary permit exemption. Existing business uses as identified in section 2.3.4 business uses, including existing retail and consumers services as identified in section 2.3.4, section 27, and restaurants as identified in section 2.3.4, section 9 of the zoning ordinance shall be allowed to temporarily add outdoor seating, display, or takeout without requiring a special permit from the zoning board of appeals or the city council or approval of the planning board under section 5.9 site plan review as applicable. However, in no instance shall such use allowance result in an increase in the approved occupancy limits of an establishment. Such outdoor seating, display, or takeout operations may be proposed on public or private sidewalks, in parking spaces, or in parking lots. However, all other codes, requirements, and permissions shall be in effect. In lieu of a special permit or site plan review requirements, applicants for outdoor seating, display, or takeout shall be required to obtain a temporary use permit from the building department after an administrative application review by, including but not limited to, the building department, health department, and public safety departments to ensure the safe use of the outdoor space. Also to include the following conditions. The restaurants are required to compensate the city for parking spaces taken by outdoor seating of an amount of $100 per space or as specified by administration on the day of the public hearing. And I so move.
Second, did you want to write the $100 per space per month?
Yeah, can we just add that? If I didn't say that, it's per month. Thank you, Counselor.
Second,
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Councilor Gilman.
So I think this is I think this is fair right now. I think it gives the business owners to huddle and decide what they want to do from now until the 14th when we have a public hearing, and we'll get to see what the interest is. And if there's interest and we support this at the public hearing, then some of the restaurant owners will be able to move forward with this. And I know it's a short season. It's only October. It's only July 1st to October 10th. But, you know, some of these owners might be excited to do that. And, you know, I don't think it will be as lofty and as popular as it was during COVID, because now people can go indoors. But to Councilor O'Hara's comment, you know, there's still that opportunity that some people still feel more comfortable outdoors. So maybe there'll be some positives to it. So I'm going to be supporting this, and I like where this has gone, and I think and I also look forward to the retailers and the restaurant owners huddling and coming up with a collaborative program that's much more rich and exciting starting in the fall for the summers and the years ahead. And I think that's the goal. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Councilor O'Neill, you care to chime in?
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
You're good to go. Well, I echo your comments, Val. I think, our job, as I said, is to offer the opportunity, and whether businesses take advantage of it or not is totally up to them. I hope that they do, but I too would like to see a collaborative effort towards looking at next summer and summers in the future, where we think about making this a more regularly scheduled kind of event, and maybe figure out a way to add occupancy, because I think one of the things that's going to be a killer for people is to say, well, if we're going to take half our seats outside and lose half the seating inside, it's not necessarily worth it to us. But if we were to be able to come up with a plan next year that allowed them to add some seating during closed nights where the streets are closed, then you're talking about adding, occupancy and traffic and more people coming downtown. So I'd love to see the chamber and the administration and the city council get together and try to help with the restaurants and the retailers come up with a plan for that for next year. And given that it's 2023 and our 400th anniversary, what a way to celebrate, but outside jalapenos, right? So good. We're ready to go for a vote here. All right, roll call vote with Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilor Gross says yes. We'll see y'all on the 14th for the public hearing, and hopefully get a little bit more participation this time. We got anything else? We're all set, right?
You just need to mention that one of the things is going to be continued.
Oh, yes, right. Thank you. That would be my order, which is not in front of me at the moment, but the order to what is the order?
Want me to read it? Hold on. I've got it right here in front of me because I'm on my computer. Matters to be continued is City Council 2022-015 GROW. Amend GZO Section 5.11.3, Section 1, Inclusionary Housing Requirements. Applicability by removing the creation of, and 5.11.3 section 2 by removing a net increase of, and section 5.11.4 section 1 basing requirements by removing the creation of, and in 5.11.4 section 2 removing the creation of. And this has been continued from 5/18/22, and it will be continued until June 22nd, 2022.
You can tell I'm not a creationist. The planning board had to continue it, and we're going to wait until we hear from their recommendations and then move on that. But with that being said, I didn't have my agenda in front of me. Now I do. We're good to go, right? Anything else? Any other discussions? Anything anybody wants to talk about? Far out? All right. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Councilor Gelman,
Yes.
Councilor O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilor Carvelis. Councilor Groves says yes. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Jill, for staying with us.
Thanks,
too.
Jill.
Good night,
Can't wait-
everybody.
Can't wait to see the
Thank you.
new do.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.